Welcome to Peace in a Pod. My name is Doug Bowen-Bailey, and I am part of a team who will be talking with members and friends of Peace United Church of Christ in Duluth, Minnesota, exploring some of their spiritual and faith journeys. We look forward to the insights shared and hope that you will find something to inspire you and help you feel connected to Peace Church's efforts to praise God, live in the way of Jesus, and build the beloved community. Welcome to our first episode of Peace in a Pod. We wanted to start off with the first episode with talking with Pastor Kathy Nelson. She just announced this past week to the congregation in church that she has plans to retire in December of 2020. And so we thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk with her a little bit about her experience as a pastor here at Peace Church and her spiritual journey that brought her to this place. So thanks for Kathy for being a part of this.
Sure.
So the first question, we actually are kind of starting off with a question that Krista Tippett, who is the person who has the On Being podcast, asks all her guests. She asks people to talk about their spiritual background of their childhood. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about kind of what was your growing up years like and how that formed your faith.
I'm unusual in the United Church of Christ that I actually grew up in a United Church of Christ congregation. So I grew up always going to church, so in St. Louis Park at Union Congregational United Church of Christ, and had a great experience of church, Wednesday night activities, youth group. I also had a female associate pastor, so I grew up with a woman as a pastor who was really my mentor. Grew up going on church canoe trips. Actually, the first time I ever went into Boundary Waters was with a church youth trip. We went out of Sawville, I'll still remember that, and did a 1 mile portage for my very first portage. So into Beth Lake, I think it was. So learned to love the outdoors through church, and after that experience then went on to work for camps and outfitters, and so that was formative for me, and also having a woman for a pastor. So I can't imagine life without growing up in the United Church of Christ and the liberal perspective that it brought. So this was just normal to me. I also, after college, went and served for a year with the United Church of Christ in their youth services program. So as a 1-year volunteer, a service learner, and again sent me to St. Louis, where I worked in the inner city in youth programming with kids in the inner city. So it's been so formative for me to be part of the United Church of Christ.
So can you talk a little bit about what brought you to Peace Church?
Yep, it was a job. It was the best, because I remember I had been an associate pastor for 6 years at that point and was having a little bit of a rough go of it. And a conference minister said to me, it's time. If you don't want to be an associate pastor for the rest of your life, you need to get a solo position. And so I talked it over with my husband at the time, who was Tim, he's still my husband, but at the time was a police officer, and we looked at places that were open, and he said he could see himself living in Duluth. So I went ahead and applied for this position, not really thinking it would be a possibility, but it turned out the search committee of 9, 7 had kids who were about to enter confirmation. I love kids, so I think that really helped me get the job, because I was pretty young at the time. I was in my early 30s, 31 or 32, so it was just a great opportunity to come and serve this congregation. And Tim then came. He worked briefly for the Superior Police Department and then went on and got his master's in social work at UMD, and it's been a great transition for both of us. Not without a little bumps, but really good.
Well, one of the parts of our kind of mission at Peace Church is living the way of Jesus. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions we're thinking about is what's one way that you're kind of trying to live that out and living the way of Jesus?
I just think his outreach, his inclusivity, and I love this job in part because you never know who's going to walk in the door day to day, and often it's people who have been marginalized in some ways, have needs, just need to talk, need to grab a cup of coffee, and we have gas vouchers so we can help with some gas. Or I think the openness to this congregation, to all kinds of people. I love my work at the county jail with the women there. I've been doing that for 25 years, leading Bible study. But really, we just talk about the scriptures that I have to preach on the coming week and get their insights. And I learn as much from them as they do from me. But I love this commitment of this place to social justice and everything that so many people are doing. I'm just so inspired. As I like to say, there go my people. I'm trying to keep up. And I really mean that. It's amazing to me the way people are walking the faith and living the way of Jesus together.
Yeah. Well, I know that I personally really appreciate the connection you have at the jail and the way that you bring that to the community. So I'm wondering, kind of part of that helps me feel connected. So I'm wondering, what are the ways that you personally feel part kind of a connected spiritual community?
I think in worship here, for me, it's both individual and the corporate. I need corporate worship. I need to be in worship with other people. And I think being in worship here and just being able to sing with other people is so important. Sharing leadership with Jim and Nathan and others is such a blessing because it's really a creative act that we do together and with the people of God, because you never know what's going to happen on Sunday morning. I love all the kids in worship. I love that, being connected to a big community of people that are trying to follow in this way of Jesus. Personal prayer, though, is also important. I'm so grateful for the centering prayer group that meets at church, but I don't get there, but I try to make centering prayer part of my daily practice. The Still Speaking daily devotional, I start every day with that, and I really, if people haven't had a chance to go and get the Still Speaking daily devotional, it is a great way to start your day. So just a scripture, a story, and then a prayer every day in your inbox, in your email. It's great.
Yeah. Well, and we can include a link to that for people to sign
great.
up in the podcast too. So thinking about that, I read those as well.
Yeah,
and there's sometimes, really focused things, and there's sometimes kind of wrestling with big questions. Yeah. So wondering what are the big questions that you're thinking about these days?
I think climate change for all of us have been what do we do? And I have been so inspired by our climate justice team, usually the FEET team, and their activity, watching Lisa Fitzpatrick organize for the city to declare a climate emergency has been inspiring. But still feeling like, oh my God, is it too late? I think our adult forum speakers this fall have been amazing, again, around climate justice, but listening to them really say, we have very little time. What are we going to do? And one of them speaking about the need to really consider nuclear. And it was like, wow. So saying, okay, that might have to be an option for us. So I think climate justice is one of the big questions right now. I think racial inequality and the work of the dismantling racism team has been huge as we continue to look. It doesn't seem like we're making a lot of progress. So how do we keep working on that issue with people of color and letting them lead, but following in real meaningful ways. And I think we have an opportunity with the 100th anniversary of the lynching coming up and working with Clayton Jackson McGee. I'm saddened lately. I know I just found out Tracy Gibson, the pastor at St. Mark's AME, has been reassigned. She has been fabulous to work with. So now whoever comes next will forge a new relationship, but grieving that she's no longer part of that congregation. Whoever comes will be good too, but I really liked working with her. So. Yeah.
Well, that kind of brings up another question I've been thinking about, is that you are obviously the pastor for Peace Church, but you're also out in the community. And so you are an important person, not just for Peace Church, but for the community as a whole. So can you talk a little bit about your kind of community connections and what that means for you and the congregation?
I think because I've been here 28 years and most people never have that kind of tenure, and because Peace Church really does try to be a light on the hill and open and inclusive and really working hard on justice issues, I think that people feel like this is a safe space. So you get called for things that other people might not be called for. Like Friday, I helped to create, really the Lifehouse staff led a young man Chaz from their community, had been part of their Lifehouse community for 5 years, but really struggled with mental health and depression. He took his life in September, and so last Friday we had a memorial service because he's estranged from his family, and so Lifehouse had really become his family, and so wanting to have a way to remember that young man. And so the staff called me in and said, help us plan something. And just sitting with them and listening to their stories, it was very clear what we needed to do. Chaz had been part of their candle making industry, and he had been a director of marketing. He had made candles, and they had a beautiful candle he had made. So we took that candle, lit it, and then kids just got up. I bought tea lights, and they lit candles and told stories about Chaz. And then we had pizza because he loved pizza. So it's just being available when those needs pop up, and I think the community feels like, oh, we could call Peace because they'll show up. And that's really what it's about, knowing that if someone from the community calls, it's the church says, yeah, of course you go, of course you show up. And the same thing at Chum, having done a lot of memorial services for folks down at Chum, but because we're there every other Wednesday making breakfast, or Damiano making lunch. So it's mostly about showing up and knowing that you're going to show up and people trust you.
Yeah. So another podcast I listened to, Code Switch, they asked this question: what's bringing you life? What's bringing you hope these days? So I'm curious, you talked about climate justice as being one of the things that seems like kind of clouds on the horizon. Yeah. So in the midst of that, what's bringing you life and hope these days?
Our youth. Oh my gosh, it was such a blessing to spend a week with them in Denver, and I think that's one of the things I'll miss the most when I retire. I know it is that I'll miss the most, is just hanging out with youth, because they ask really good questions, they're really insightful, and I get my hope from them. We have amazing... I think you can't come here on Sunday morning and not have hope, because the amount of kids and babies in the back, dads walking their babies in the narthex because the kids are talking. It's just the kids and their concerns and their actions, like being at the youth climate march and seeing a lot of our kids there. It's like, that brings me hope, our youth.
Great. You had talked before about the still speaking kind of meditations. Are there any other resources that you would recommend people to look into as part of their own spiritual journeys? I
think reading Bibles. I love the Bible study we do here on Wednesday nights at 6, because we really just bring our lives to the text. So I really like that. But taking time to read as much as, if you do have time to read. I've been reading Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson in preparation for the Clayton Jackson McGee event. Just trying to read stuff as much as you can. Reading Braiding Sweetgrass, so just, that's what I love about this church. People always have good suggestions for reading. So, and taking time for prayer. Swimming exercise. I love my swim twice a week. That's prayer time.
Yeah. Well, any other final thoughts that you would have that you kind of want to share here?
Being part of a community, I'm like, I can't imagine life without this place. So I'm starting to get my head around that, and this people. So be part of a group, because we're all just walking each other home. Yeah. Walking each other home. Well, it will be, I think, for all of us in the congregation, as you are wrapping your head around not being here, we also have that challenge of wrapping our head around you not being here. So I'm grateful that you were willing to take some time to share your thoughts and all that you've shared with this community over the years. So thanks again for being a part of this. Thank you. It's been a blessing.
Thank you for listening to Peace in a Pod. Special thanks to Reverend Kathy Nelson for sharing her thoughts today, and to the Peace Church Spiritual Journey team for their guidance in the development of this podcast. The music was composed by Steve Horner and performed by Nathan Holst on violin and Jim Poshwhistle on piano. If you are interested in learning more about Peace United Church of Christ, please visit our website at peaceucc.org. We wish you the best on your own spiritual journey and hope that you too may find peace.